Howdy ESSM 406. In this lecture I want to talk to you briefly about cost-benefit analysis because in the essay for Unit 3.1 I ask you to think about costs and benefits. What do I mean by that? Well, I give you an article by a whole bunch of economists led by Ken Arrow, who is a Nobel Prize-winning economist, that advocates for the use of cost-benefit analysis. As it's understood in economics, cost-benefit analysis is something very specific. And you can probably take a whole class on cost-benefit analysis, either at the Bush School or possibly in the economics department. It's a common component of a master's level course in public policy. And basically, cost-benefit analysis is a standardized technique for monetizing and adding up and comparing the costs and benefits of different policy proposals. And you can imagine, well, that sounds like obviously it's a good idea. We want to make sure that the benefits at whatever we're planning to do are going to outweigh the costs, right? This has actually been really controversial in the environmental arena for a couple of reasons. And probably the biggest reason is that it's really, really, really hard to figure out how to monetize certain kinds of environmental costs. So we can say, well, if we do this, this species will go extinct. How much is that worth? Well, people have spent a lot of time trying to figure out ways to calculate how much a species is worth. And there are techniques, but they're all very controversial, and everyone thinks that they might not be valuable. And some people will say, you know, even if you come up with that monetary value, I don't buy it. Why don't I buy it? Well, I don't buy it because, you know, this species has a right to exist. And the same thing comes up, you know, if you talk about water. Some people will say, well, I have a right to water. It doesn't matter how much it costs. You have to give me water. And this has come up as a really big issue in certain developing countries where when we're talking about water, we're talking about people having access to enough water to drink each day, not the vastly larger amounts of water that we use every day to shower and flush the toilet, but just having enough, a gallon, to drink and cook your food. People say, well, you know, I don't care how much that costs. That's my right. I'm going to die if I don't get that. There's also problems comparing certain things that are not very commensurate. So, for example, if you think about the benefits versus the costs, and you're talking about benefits in a wealthy part of the world versus costs in a poor part of the world, sometimes the costs might seem much lower. You know, we've actually calculated that the cost of a human life in the U.S., as we value it, might be $6, $7, $8 million. That's kind of a weird thing to say. My life is worth $7 million. But if you do the same calculation using the same methods in a poor country, you might find the cost of a life is $100,000. Well, you know, if that means that if this is going to benefit me by $100,000, it's okay if a person in the developing country is killed? That's a pretty hard thing to say. So cost-benefit analysis is extremely useful as a way of thinking about problems. But it does lead you into some kind of deep moral and theoretical issues that are difficult to answer. Now, I'm not asking you to do a cost-benefit analysis. As I said, you have to take a course to learn how to do cost-benefit analysis. All I'm asking you to do in the paper is qualitatively tell me what the costs are. Tell me what the benefits are of this policy. Compare them. This is we could say a more heuristic way of thinking about costs and benefits. We're going to do some systematic thinking about what the costs are and what the benefits are. That's all I want you to do in this class. If you're serious about this, if you want to work in the environmental policy field, you probably should learn how to do cost-benefit analysis. It is a very important tool. But as I said, that's a whole course. So, thanks.